I thought, I'll be in and out. One errand, 10 minutes. That's the sentence that detonated my life. Jared had already said no. Twice. He was polite the first time and flat the second. You're excluded on my policy, Mia. It's literally in writing. If you drive my car and something happens, insurance won't cover it. He wasn't being controlling, he'd added the exclusion years before we met because my license had a suspension from a speeding mess and a failure to appear ticket I never untangled. He'd shown me the endorsement when we talked about moving in, my full name, excluded driver, with his signature and the agency sign initial. He kept repeating, you can use Uber. We'll go together later. I nodded like I understood. And then, the minute he left for his Saturday run, I snagged the spare key from the little ceramic bowl that says, keys, as if the label made it a moral lockbox. One coffee pickup for his mum, one drop at the pharmacy. A quick kindness to make up for how distant I'd been. 10 minutes. I never even made it out of the grocery store lot. The crash wasn't dramatic. I eased out, looked left, then right, and a dented Tacoma cut through the lane faster than it should have. I hit the brakes, slid over the paint slick arrow, and kissed his rear quarter panel with Jared's bumper. The pop felt soft and then wrong. Plastic cracking, a fog light hanging like a loose tooth. My hands shook so hard I couldn't pull the gear into park. The other driver got out. Mid-50s, work boots, the paint of his truck matching the dust on his jeans. He was calm. You okay? I nodded, already crying. We did the polite exchange. IDs, insurance cards, phones out snapping pictures neither of us wanted. When he asked for Jared's insurance, my throat clenched. I handed over the card and prayed the universe would pretend I didn't exist. Whose name is that? He asked. My boyfriend. It's his car. Is he coming? He's running, I said, which sounded stupid even to me. We called non-emergency. An officer rolled up, took statements, reminded us it was private property and mostly a civil matter, but he still wrote an incident number and asked if either of us needed medical. We both declined. The officer told me to let the owner know about the claim. He didn't know I was about to ruin Jared's Saturday in a way a 10-mile run couldn't fix. I drove the car home gingerly, the fog light thudding against the bumper with each expansion joint like a heartbeat begging to be noticed. Jared walked in 10 minutes later, cheeks wind pink, earbuds twined around his neck. He took one look at the front of the car through the window and went quiet in that terrifying calm he does when he's solving an algebra problem he didn't ask to do. What happened? He asked. No yell. No curse. Just data. I started, then showed him the officer's card, the photos, the truck, the text message I drafted and never sent, grabbing coffee for your mom. Back in 10. Don't be mad. I'd never pressed send because even my phone didn't believe me. You took my car after I told you no, he said. Not a question. I was trying to do something nice. For your mom. He blinked once. You could have done that on foot. He stepped outside, took a dozen photos of the bumper and the hanging light, then came back in and set his phone on the counter. He called his insurer on speaker. He read the claim number the officer gave us, spelled the Tacoma driver's last name from the exchange sheet, and answered questions with short, precise phrases. When the adjuster asked who was driving, he said my full name and then, she's an excluded driver on my policy. The adjuster's tone shifted from neutral to procedural. Okay, Mr. Watkins, your policy includes a named driver exclusion. We will open a claim file, but please be aware that coverage does not extend to accidents when the excluded driver is operating the vehicle. She explained it like she'd said it 100 times. Because she had. In Texas, insurers can exclude specific drivers by name. The exclusion has to be specific and accepted in writing. Jared had exactly that. If an excluded driver causes a crash, the insurer can deny the claim. It doesn't matter that the car itself has a valid policy. The person behind the wheel is a hard no. Texas Insurance Code Section 1952.353 allows a named driver exclusion if the excluded driver is specifically named and the named insured accepts in writing. Courts and practitioners explain that an excluded driver is entirely barred from coverage under that policy, even in emergencies. The adjuster also warned, almost kindly, that even with a denial, the incident could still affect Jared's policy at renewal. Risk is risk. Insurers hate surprises like excluded drivers. Practitioners note insurers may non-renew or increase premiums after an excluded driver crash. Jared thanked her and hung up. Then he texted the Tacoma driver, "My insurer is denying coverage because the driver was excluded. You can file against your own policy. I'll send you the incident number and the exclusion endorsement." It was cold and correct. The man wrote back, "Copy. I'll handle. Expect a call." I wanted Jared to put his arms around me and say, "It's okay, we'll fix it," the way he had when I lost my job last spring. Instead, he pulled out the policy PDF and highlighted my name under the excluded driver section, like he was preparing an exhibit. "I told you, Mia," he said. "I told you no because I was protecting us. We didn't talk much that afternoon. I tried to do chores that looked repentant." He took the fog light off so it would stop swinging. His face was the same careful neutral as the adjuster, which hurt more than yelling. The next morning, he set a mug of coffee in front of me and slid a printed sheet across the table, "Small claims. Petition." The line for the defendant read my full name again, last first, the way it would look on a docket. "You're suing me?" I whispered. "I don't want to," he said. "But the repairs are $1,740, and the body shop needs a deposit. My collision won't pay because of the exclusion. I can't afford to subsidize your decision." He'd printed the Justice Court information that said Texas small claims can cover amounts up to $20,000. He'd even highlighted the line that the court can only award money, they can't make someone do something. No judge would order me to be more careful. Just money, because that's what I had damaged. Texas Justice small claims limit is $20,000. Justice courts award money judgments, not injunctions. "I'll pay you back," I said, too fast. "I'll figure it out. You don't have to file. I'll hold the petition for 2 weeks," he said. "If you sign a payment plan and make the first installment on Friday, I won't file. But if I don't have money in hand, I'm done waiting." He emailed the Tacoma driver copies of the report and the exclusion page. The man acknowledged and said he'd run it through his own collision for repairs and might subrogate against me later. The word subrogate made my stomach flip. It meant someone else's insurance might step into his shoes and chase me for the payout. An attorney blog the man sent me. Unsolicited, may be merciful. Said victims of excluded driver crashes either claim on their own policy or sue the driver directly. The excluded driver can face fines and personal liability. Texas firms explain that when an excluded driver causes a crash, the policy won't cover, and victims can sue the driver or use their own coverage. Excluded drivers can face tickets and civil liability. 2 days later, the citation landed, failure to maintain financial responsibility. I'd handed the officer Jared's card, but it didn't matter. The operator needs insurance applicability. An excluded driver isn't covered by that policy while driving, so to the state, I'd been behind the wheel without valid liability coverage. The standard fine on a first offense is a few $100s, escalating for repeats. The paper gave me a court date and instructions about dismissal if I could prove coverage at the time of the stop. I couldn't. Texas treats driving without financial responsibility as a misdemeanor with fines. Dismissal requires proof of valid coverage at the time, not after. I cried at the kitchen island like the surface could absorb my guilt through osmosis. Jared didn't watch. He opened a new email and wrote to our landlord asking for permission to park street side for a week while the repair shop waited on parts. It was the same tone he'd used with the adjuster, exact, polite, final. That night I offered the worst apology. A solution made of selfishness. What if we just say you were driving? I said. The second the words left my mouth, I tasted rust. Jared didn't raise his voice. He just stood up and went to the drawer where we keep documents and pulled out the printed exclusion again, then my text from that morning, I'm so sorry I took your car. I'm at the house. Please don't be furious. He stared at the 2 pages like they were a pair of math problems with the same obvious answer. I won't lie for you, he said. And I won't be your co-signer on consequences you chose. I took a cashier's check to the body shop on Friday. It was my first payment and half my savings. I signed his written plan, $300 every 2 weeks until the balance and the new higher premium reserve were covered. He initialed. He didn't touch my hand. His mom called me that Sunday. I braced for judgment, but she said something I didn't expect. Boundaries feel mean to the person who just crossed them. It didn't make me feel better. It made me feel seen. Meanwhile, the Tacoma driver's insurer sent me a letter. We have paid our insured's claim. We reserve the right to pursue recovery from you. I googled subrogation and wage garnishment in Texas until my eyes watered. Every article made the same 2 points. If you hurt someone and you're uninsured, and yes, excluded means uninsured for that vehicle, they can sue you personally. If they win, they can try to collect. Texas legal resources emphasize uninsured, underinsured situations, UIM, lawsuits against at fault, and personal liability exposure. I mailed a check each payday. I cooked dinners he didn't eat. I wrote long texts I didn't send. The last straw wasn't money. It was the job interview. I'd been a receptionist at a dental office. I was weeks away from a front desk lead role at a bigger practice. I listed Jared as an emergency contact because that's what he was. My person. The practice called him to verify my schedule flexibility for Saturdays. He answered politely, and did not volunteer anything about the accident. But that night he said, please don't use me as your contact moving forward. He had removed me as his, too. It felt like moving out of a house you still lived in. A month later, the Tacoma driver's carrier sent a payoff confirmation. Because he had collision, they weren't going to chase me unless he demanded it. He didn't. I texted thank you to his number, then deleted the thread, because the person who gets mercy should not ask for more. I made the last payment to Jared in week 8. He nodded, printed a receipt he'd already templated, and said, we're square. The phrase should have felt hopeful. Instead, it sounded like a cashier's drawer closing. 2 days after that, he asked me to meet him in the leasing office. He'd brought a roommate addendum. Removal, not addition. He'd already found someone to take the second bedroom. I'm not punishing you, he said. I'm acknowledging reality. I told you a boundary. You turned it into a dare. I signed because there was nothing else to do. I moved into a sublet with a door that stuck in the frame and a neighbor who vacuumed at midnight. I took his mom's number out of my favorites and left the ceramic key bowl in the back of a cabinet like a relic from a better religion. It's been 4 months. I paid the ticket, finished the defensive driving course, and saved for my own liability policy on a Craigslist Civic that turns over like an old dog shaking itself awake. The policy is in my name with no exclusions. The agent's voice on the phone was bright and unbothered. To him, I was just a driver starting at the minimums. I felt like a person again. I keep thinking about how small the moment was when I decided to do the wrong thing. 10 minutes, one coffee, one spare key. And about how large the consequences were, how they spread into money and trust and the story of who I was in Jared's life. There are better words than, "I'm sorry." They are, "I'll pay it, I'll own it, I won't ask you to lie," and, "I'm changing this." I am learning to say them first. Host remark and outro. After all that, what did she think would happen? Insurance fairy godmother to the rescue. Hard boundaries aren't mean, they're math. Excluded means excluded. No coverage, personal liability, and a bill with your name on it. If you liked this story, hit subscribe for more. See you tomorrow.